Nobody talks enough about how exhausting it feels to carry the mental load in a marriage. Not just physically doing things, but also everything that you have to think about in the day to day. Planning everything, managing the timing of things, all the details, the emotions, the experiences. And somehow, even when your husband is helping, you still feel stressed, maybe even more frustrated or alone in the responsibility of it all. Maybe sometimes he does things completely differently than you would. Sometimes the plans change, or sometimes you feel yourself just getting irritated over something small and immediately wonder, why is this affecting me so much? You might feel like when things are off to a bad start, that you're locked in and it's just downhill from there. If you've ever felt like it would just be easier to do everything yourself, then this is for you because that feeling is a lot more common than you might think. And it usually has less to do with your husband and more to do with the pressure that you've been carrying all on your own for too long. And you're not alone in that. And there is a way to interrupt that pattern and create something new where you can feel a lot more calm and relaxed and supported. Welcome to the Softening Intellect podcast. I'm your host, relationship coach Laura Amador. And today we're talking about what to do when you feel like you have to do everything in your marriage alone. So last year, I hosted a little celebration, a little baby sprinkle at my home, and I had planned everything very carefully. I had prepped a salad and cooked a shepherd's pie for lunch, and there was Mexican sweetbread and with coffee and tea for dessert. And I had planned it so that the shepherd's pie would go into the oven just as guests were arriving, so that everything would feel perfectly timed and everything would smell wonderful and they could have a hot meal, right? And so as the guests were coming into the house, my husband, sweet and welcoming as ever, started offering the sweetbread and coffee the moment people walked through the door. And I panicked. I smiled and I gently took the tray of sweetbread away from him and into the kitchen, and I tucked it away out of sight so that it wouldn't all be devoured before lunch was even served. And then I stood there for a moment and I realized what was actually happening. My husband was helping. He was being warm and generous, but because he wasn't doing it exactly the way that I had pictured and the way that I had planned, something in me restricted and tightened. And it wasn't about the bread, of course, or about the timing. It was about the mental load and it was about needing control. The pressure of holding the experience together and wanting so badly everybody to have the perfect experience and to host the perfect party. And it was this feeling that if I didn't manage every last detail, things wouldn't go well. And so I wasn't responding from a place of peace. I was responding from a place of overwhelm and anxiety and fear. And so I had to take a moment. So I went into the bathroom and I looked at myself in the mirror and I just asked myself, how do I actually want to show up today? How do I want to experience this party? Did I want to spend the afternoon managing every single tiny detail and silently resisting everything that didn't match my plan? Or did I want to be present and relaxed and able to actually enjoy the moment with my family and to receive my husband's actual help and warmth? So in that moment, I chose differently. I came back out feeling much more calm and relaxed and ready to just enjoy and loosen my grip. And I put the sweet bread back out on the table because I had already hidden it by this time. So I brought it back out. I thanked my husband for his help and support and for being such a gracious host to my friends and family. And something really interesting happened. Things turned out even better than I had planned or imagined. I was relaxed, the guests were relaxed, people snacked and laughed, and the coffee and the conversation flowed. And by the time lunch was served, the atmosphere was already warm and connected. Not because I controlled every last detail perfectly, but because I stopped trying to. I had another similar moment just this past weekend. We hosted my son's birthday party. And so I woke up early and immediately went into execution mode, right? I was cleaning everything, decorating, organizing, preparing food, just moving quickly throughout the day, checking things off the to-do list. And I was carrying all of that mental load of the entire event without even thinking about my desires, zero self care, zero receiving. And so, about 30 minutes before the guests arrived, I realized that my head was starting to pound. And as I thought back to the day and why my head was hurting, it actually made perfect sense. I hadn't had any breakfast or lunch yet. I hadn't even had a sip of water. I hadn't done anything for myself that whole day. I skipped my morning walk. And then the baby was fussy. She hadn't had her nap yet. And meanwhile, my husband was outside mowing the lawn. And in the past, years and years ago, that used to be a frustration or a pet peeve of mine. I would say, whenever we're hosting, instead of helping me with the things that need to get done, he's always mowing the lawn last minute, right? And so I felt that familiar thought rise up, thinking, there's so much to do inside, and he's outside mowing the lawn. And so years ago, I would have stayed in that frustration. I would have quietly carried everything myself, allowing that headache to worsen and my dehydration and hunger to worsen, and probably been really cranky and resentful the rest of the day. Because when you feel like you have to do everything yourself, it's easy to slip into the belief that no one else will do it correctly, or that it's just faster for you to do it, or that you have to plan and manage everything or it just won't get done. But this time I paused. And instead of focusing on what he was doing, I checked in with myself. What did I actually need right in that moment? And the answer was very simple. I needed water, I needed food, and I needed a break and a moment to reset before the party began. And so I walked outside and I waved at my husband and told him exactly that. I would love a little break before people came. And because I was already grateful seeing that in his own way, he was being supportive and trying to also create a beautiful environment for our guests, just like me, that we're on the same team. We both want the same things, and sometimes we just go about them differently. And so once I shared where I was at emotionally and what I wanted and what I needed, he immediately said, yeah, yeah, don't worry, I've got it. I'll pick up the pizza. You go take a break. And I had to let go of the fear that things would fall apart if I stepped away and didn't do them myself. And not just that, but I had to step away and let go of the fear of what people would think about me. I had to let go of the worry that if guests arrived at the party and I wasn't there to greet them, then they might not see me as a great host or a great mom, right? Or what my son would think if I stepped away and took a little break before people arrived. So I had to let go of all of that and just tend to myself in the moment. And guess what? Not only did nothing fall apart, but things went beautifully. My son was thrilled and he was playing with his friends. My husband handled all the loose strings. And when I came down and was ready to join in the party, things were already in full swing. Everybody was happy. And I was able to be really present and actually enjoy the guests, enjoy my family, enjoy my son, and enjoy the celebration of him. It was actually a really, really beautiful time. And so I realized something really important. When you're running on empty and carrying too much mental load, everything else feels so much heavier than it actually is. And often the solution is incredibly simple, so much simpler than we make it out to be. And here's the thing, most women don't actually want to do everything themselves. They just feel like they have to and get stuck in that pattern or get stuck in that feeling that it's expected that we do everything. And so we step into that expectation. And this often comes from a combination of holding everything in your head, making sure everyone else is okay, and taking on all of that mental load and emotional responsibility. It might come from previous experiences where stepping back did create chaos and things fell through the cracks. Or it could be from difficulty receiving help when it looks different than expected, or fear that things will fall apart if they're not done just right or just your way. So even when your husband is helping, it can still feel like his help is either not enough or it's not the correct type of help, or it's easier if you just do it yourself. Or maybe you're just tired of telling him exactly how to help and wish that he would just know what to do on his own. And then slowly, without realizing it, you end up carrying everything. And of course, this is not because you want to necessarily, but because it feels safer than letting go. So today I want to show you how to reset the tone at any given moment. You don't have to wait for things to get bad before you give yourself permission to check in with yourself. So here's what the reset actually looks like in practice and in real life. Step one is to notice when fear is driving. This is the first and most important step. Fear usually shows up with this sense of urgency or rigidity or sometimes even resentment. When you feel the need to control every detail, maybe you feel stressed or anxious, stressed or overwhelmed. When something small sends you into a panic, like the thought of dessert being eaten before the main meal, when you find yourself managing instead of enjoying, that's the signal. So pause there. Step two is to ask yourself these two honest questions. How do I want to feel right now? And what would help me to feel that way? So this isn't about how you think you're supposed to feel, how you think you're supposed to act as a good wife or a good mom, but this is how you actually feel, how you want to feel, and who you want to be in that moment, and what's going to support you and help you in making that shift. Step three is to choose that one small shift. So you don't have to overhaul the whole situation. Sometimes the shift is just walking into the bathroom for 2 minutes, like I did, and taking a breather and just getting in touch with how you want to experience the situation. Sometimes it's putting the tray of sweet bread and dessert back on the table. Sometimes it's as simple as walking outside while your husband's mowing the lawn and saying, I would love to have some lunch and some water and a little break, and I can't pick up the pizza right now. Right? One small, honest move is all it takes to change the energy of a room and of a marriage. Step four is to receive what comes next. This is where so many wives get stuck. We say we can't do something or we express a desire, but then hover to make sure it's done right, or hover emotionally with expectations, waiting to see the result. We superficially let go of the plan, but quietly mourn the loss of control and still look for ways to grasp at it. True release means trusting your husband or your family or your guests that they can handle it. In other words, coming home to your own paper and letting go of everybody else's. And more often than not, they'll rise to meet you. And step five is to give yourself credit. Choosing peace over control is simple, but it might not always feel easy. It can go against every instinct that says, if I don't manage this, it's going to fall apart. So when you pause, check in, and choose to show up differently, that's one of the most powerful things that you can do. So here's the most important thing that I want to share today, and that's that nothing is locked in. You're never trapped in the tone of a moment. No matter how the morning started, or no matter how stressed you feel, no matter what didn't go according to plan, you can always, always, always reset. And that's because you always get to choose who you want to be and how you want to show up in any given moment. Sometimes letting go means the sweet bread becomes the best part of the party. Sometimes it means coming downstairs refreshed and finding your husband already being your hero and greeting all the guests. Sometimes when you release control, things go even better than what you planned. And when they don't go perfectly, even when the pie is a little cold or the house isn't quite ready for your son's party, you still have shown up as yourself, present, honest, free, receptive, and feeling grateful. And that's always, always enough. So you're not locked into the tone of any moment. Fear will always try to convince you that controlling, managing, and pushing through is the responsible choice. But the most powerful thing you can do for yourself and for your marriage and for anyone else you love is to pause, check in, and choose how you want to show up. To ask yourself how you want to feel and what's going to help you feel that way in the moment. To say you can't when something is too much and to express your desires, whether that's just to yourself, I would love some water when I'm dehydrated, or it's to your husband by saying, I would love a break. Trust your husband, trust the people around you, receive the help, and watch what happens when you stop gripping so tightly and start showing up from a place of peace and confidence instead. Now, I want to leave you with two ways to go deeper with this. The first is that I have a free guide called Three Shifts to Reignite Connection in Your Marriage. You can find that in the description. And if this resonated with you and you'd like to go much deeper and transform your marriage with a guided step-by-step process and my support, let's talk. The link to send me a message is also in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And until next time, keep softening into love.